Violence as a public health issue. Well, this is the focus of the CARICOM Symposium that is due to take place on Monday the 17th and Tuesday the 18th. That's next week, Monday and Tuesday. Now, joining me to discuss this, an individual who has expressed that this is possibly getting it right, is a former special advisor and coordinator of the National Tripartite Advisory Council, Mr. Roy Mitchell. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Ketan.
Well, thank you very much for joining me on AM Prime this morning. As I start this conversation, violence as a public health issue, exactly what does this mean? In fact, are there any legal ramifications associated with such a choice description?
Well, let me first of all say good morning to your viewers and listeners. The whole theory of violence being a public health issue seems to have originated somewhere in the United States. My study of this subject takes me back to a policy statement that was issued by the American Public Health Association way back in 2018. They were introducing a theory that suggests that there are certain interconnecting agencies that are associated with this whole question of crime, which makes it a public health issue. And they were examining the possibility of getting all these bodies together to study the question of crime insofar as it affects the health and wellness of nations. They thought of using the ministries of health as the coordinating agency and bringing together agencies like the justice system, the hospitals, the Ministry of Health, the social sector ministry, the universities, the police, bringing all these agencies together specifically in the first instance for the purpose of data collection, to see what data they would be able to gather and study to make a determination of the extent to which all these agencies have data that will inform what the problems and the issues are associated with violence. That is really the background to the whole thing from my perspective. I don't know what the government's premises. Not sure that, as far as I know, with the population at large.
Well, Mr. Mitchell,
from my perspective, that's where it is.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe there were hints at a national crime consultation, which I think were due to take place in March, but this has broadened into a more regional discussion with CARICOM. Is there any merit to this initiative, particularly for Trinidad and Tobago, given our domestic current state of affairs?
Well, that is my bone of contention, really. That is the issue that I have. The issue I have is that the Prime Minister had promised the nation a crime consultation sometime in March. Quite unexpectedly, I think it happened in the Parliament, he announced that this had been abandoned, and instead he had gone for a regional consultation on crime with a focus on violence being a health issue and also dealing with the whole question of gang warfare and gun warfare. I took issue with the process, and my contention was that if the CARICOM leaders have to really study this situation very carefully and very broadly, the first step should be for the consultations to take place at the local levels. In other words, consult with the people of each CARICOM state in much the same way that you're consulting with with the people to increase the electricity rates. In much the same way, I think the crime situation, to me, is a lot more conducive to a situation like that. And after you have done that and gathered as much information from the population of each of the CARICOM states, you bring that information together, you put it in a concise format, and you present those facts, those details, those ideas, those suggestions, those principles, those policies, those plans, those programs that the people on the ground would have come up with, and present that to the CARICOM leaders, who, in addition to whatever additional information they may have, can then look at the thing from a much broader perspective than simply deciding to go the way of top down, as they normally like to do, rather than from bottom up, and get a consensus that will inform your discussions and make it a lot more meaningful and productive.
Is there a sense then that domestically our leaders have fallen short and are honoring this lack of critical thinking, this lack of planning, this lack of ideas, by now turning to the regional heads for fresh perspective and guidance, I suppose?
Well, actually, more than that. In the region, everybody's house is burning down. It's burning down with crime and lawlessness, with gang warfare and with crime of untold proportions. And if you have to address the situation in the Caribbean, you have to start by addressing the situation in your local environment. Right now, people are panicking, people are terrified. They're afraid to leave their homes. And this is a time at which you prefer to discuss crime being a public health issue, which for practical purposes, even if they come up with the best ideas in the world, nothing is going to happen for the next 5 or 10 years, because it's a very complex undertaking to bring all these agencies together under one roof, knowing the kind of political innuendos that we face in the region. Here in Trinidad and Tobago, for example, if you have to pass laws, you can't get the opposition to join forces with you. You can't get the opposition to even agree to the Court of Criminal Justice. So you are tackling it from the wrong end. That is all I'm saying. You start at the level of your communities, your country. We are burning down. Let us talk about our situation, what it is that is affecting, causing it. And when we get that straight and we get as much information as we possibly can from the communities all over the country, going to every nook and cranny, as they did in the case of the RIC and TNTech, and then put that information together in a very concise form and present it to the CARICOM leaders alongside others that will come from the other CARICOM states, and they will have before them then a document that is very comprehensive, a greater understanding and appreciation of local conditions, and coming straight from the people and not from the technocrats, as we tend to do. And therefore be better informed in respect of taking decisions that could be right and could be productive.
Well, Mr. Mitchell, in reality then, based on what we've discussed thus far, in reality, what can come out of this symposium? I mean, a very expensive meeting. It is an expensive meeting because we're hosting other leaders. And I mean this with absolute respect, of talking suits. I mean, signing a memorandum of understanding, putting pen to paper, is not going to do much. I mean, in reality, what can come out of this?
Well, this is my concern. If you look at how the performance record of the CARICOM, it doesn't augur well. It doesn't inspire you. And an issue as critical as this, that is sweeping not only Trinidad and Tobago, sweeping the Caribbean, and sweeping the world, you need to get your people on board from the very beginning. crime, violence as a public health issue is something new to all of us. All of us. And therefore, if you really want to get buy-in from the population, you first have to sell the idea to the population, what you want to achieve, get the population involved in discussing it, come up with their own ideas and suggestions and so on. And then you take that whole body of information to the CARICOM secretariat, to the CARICOM leaders, and therefore have an informed discussion. What is so difficult about that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm actually wondering, sir, if such information does not exist, and to my best knowledge, it doesn't seem to. Exactly what is going to be shared at this symposium? What is going to be presented? Statistics? I mean, I think we've
well, I don't know, because even last night I was looking at a program, and the person who was supposed to be the program coordinator for the project, he couldn't give us information that would be salient. No idea what the subjects are going to be what are the subjects that are going to be discussed. I think they indicated that the website is going to be launched yesterday for a project that's supposed to involve the entire Caribbean region starting on Monday. And only yesterday the website is being launched. I mean, come on, man. We have to be more serious about the crime situation than that. It is not something to be rushed. It cannot be solved overnight. And especially trying to change people's mindset from violence being what it is and what they know to converting it now into a public health issue is a challenge. It is not that I'm against or opposed to the symposium. By no means. Yes, let it happen. But let it happen in the right setting. Mm-hmm. And the right setting is to make sure that you consult with your people first. Get them on board with respect to what this violence being a health issue, public health issue, what it is all about. Get their inputs. Mm-hmm. From the people in Matla, people in Mayaro, people in Tobago, people in Port of Spain, people in Sawa and Barataria. Get just in the same way that you could go around and discuss with the people the TNTech rate increase. Go out and talk to the people about this subject. It affects all of us. Mm-hmm. All of us.
Well, then, you know, I know you said that you need to start with the people from the ground up first. But do you, in your opinion, do you think that it is still necessary that even following this symposium and whatever may come from it, do you think it is still necessary that the Prime Minister should still have national crime consultations, even after all of this?
Well, I don't know what purpose it will serve. I rather, as I say, I think the horse would already left the state. But there's no harm in having consultations on crime, being violence being a public health issue. But you would have lost that opportunity. You would have lost that opportunity to take to the table the views and opinions and suggestions of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the people on the ground. You would have lost that opportunity to take it to the table at the symposium that they have it starting on Monday. Mm-hmm. That's an opportunity lost. And not only that, it would have been the first time, as far as I'm concerned, that all the people of the Caribbean would have been rallying around a subject matter that affects all of them. And it would have been the first time, perhaps, that all the people of the region would have been given an opportunity to have their inputs into what takes place at the level of the CARICOM heads. Mm-hmm. Why do we not see the value of something like that? Get the people on board, get buy-in from them from the beginning, because you can't wait until you have this symposium next week. After that, to try to get buy-in, the buy-in has to start from the beginning. Mm-hmm. From the inception. Take the people into your confidence. Let them know what you're talking about. Educate them on the subject. Let them give their inputs, and then you can present that to the CARICOM heads. And along with other inputs they have, they could then make take a more informed position in respect of this very delicate matter.
So then, is it due to a lack of political will that there has been the abject failure of social, economic conditions, and even cultural considerations in addressing this issue? Is it a lack of political will?
I don't know how to interpret it because it came as a shock to me when the Prime Minister announced that he had given preference to this CARICOM effort. It came as a shock to me because I think the people of Trinidad and Tobago would have been waiting very anxiously to involve themselves in a national consultation. I myself have been calling for a national consultation for a long, long time. It's nothing new. And a national consultation that will involve not only people who are in a position to prepare fancy papers and intellectual papers and so on, involving all the people. Not everybody has the capability to write a paper or make a speech. There are people who could express themselves in poetry, in drama, in song, in posters, in all sorts of artistic ways, and those things have a way of lasting a lot longer than the intellectually drafted papers that will be presented at symposium. Just value everything. Value everything. But you cannot leave out those people who express themselves in ways that are not conventional to consultations. And invariably what happens in these consultations, Ketan, is that they prepare a paper. They call it sometimes a policy position paper. And they present that to you. So they begin to influence your thinking by virtue of what they put on the table. That's not going to make the cut. Identify the subjects. Let the people discuss the subjects, and let them at the end of the day come up with their own conclusions and document those conclusions for the benefit of all who need to study them in order to arrive at a position that could be more meaningful and productive. Other than that, I think we run the risk of this being an exercise that will not eventually gain the value which it really and truly deserves, simply by not putting it in the right setting.
Well, you've described this as an opportunity lost, the national crime consultation. Yes, the national crime consultations, and perhaps this not being fruitful. But just based off of this last response, my final question to you is, at this particular symposium, besides the roles of central government and the agencies, are there any other entities or stakeholders, both public and private, whose roles should be deliberated at this symposium?
Of course. You have the role of the church. You have the role of the professional bodies. You have the role of the non-governmental organizations. You have the role of parents. You have the role of teachers. You have the role of universities. There's so many institutions in this country. The role of the defense services. The role of the protective services. A whole range of institutions and organizations whose roles have got to be examined. The roles of the sports clubs, the roles of the cultural organizations, the role of the women's groups. All these people have roles to play in combating crime and lawlessness in the country. But no effort is being made to sit down with all these institutions and have a broad-based consultation that could put these items on the agenda and discuss them in detail. There's a lot to be discussed. This is not an overnight thing. Mm-hmm. And no. I mean, with the greatest respect, as I said, I support the initiative. It is an initiative that needs to be examined. Every single initiative that could lead to overcoming the situation needs to be examined. But you're losing a big opportunity here. Mm-hmm. to put that particular new perspective, a new theory being put forward in the world at large. And therefore, we have to be a part of that, yes, but we don't have to be a part of it at the tail end. We have to be a part of it from the inception.
Very much so. Well, Mr. Mitchell, I want to thank you very much for joining me on the program this morning. An insightful discussion, must I say, and appreciate your sharing your thoughts and opinions with us, sir.
It's a pleasure.